All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is another episode of the How to Hunt Deer podcast. My name is Dan. His name is Jason. Jason, good weekend?
It was busy. He's crazy busy.
Yeah.
Actually, we made it up to by your dad's place yesterday. We had to go to a funeral and stuff.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, we did that yesterday. One of my stepdaughters tumbled yesterday up in Milwaukee,
Oh,
and my
wow.
daughter tumbled in Milwaukee on Saturday. My son had a basketball game yesterday afternoon, and my other daughter had a basketball game Saturday morning. So we covered, I don't know, probably it'd be 3 different states, so, depending on how you look at it, it's crazy. You? Did you have a good weekend?
It was the same. Funeral Friday, Saturday birthday parties and wrestling, Sunday wrestling all three of my kids, and then we didn't these tumbling events, these wrestling events, any school event. You know how it is. It's like you're leaving the house early and you're not getting home until it's too late to do anything. You know what I mean? It's like you're getting
Yeah,
home at like 5 or 6,
right.
and then you're like, well, I don't want to start any projects. I don't want to do anything. And then the next thing you know, you're behind on Monday morning. Like, dude, we need to do so much laundry.
Yeah.
The house needs clean. The kitchen looks like shit. You know how it is. Basically, we're coming and going so fast that nothing gets done. And then it just all of a sudden you have to be like, boom, we got to stop. Let's clean the house and then let's get back at it type of deal.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty much, get back at it, and then, this week, same thing. I mean, we're going in 2 different directions every single night, so
Yep.
and then you just Sunday comes around and you just hope for a couple hours of
Right.
me time,
Right.
and not
Right.
even me time, but just to relax time. So, um, I
I
do
almost
have,
have given that up, to be honest with you. I've almost given up me time. Like, as
yeah,
long as my me time is me in the car, even the kids are in it, just almost silence driving back and forth between events. That's
uh,
my time.
that's what my wife said last night. She's like, I actually enjoy the time in the vehicle, because that's our time.
Exactly.
So no, it's crazy busy, but crazy busy is not a bad thing either. So,
No,
um,
no.
but I do have a story about it was actually my number one target buck. Uh, as luck would have it, Illinois season ended last Sunday, so what,
Hmm.
18th or whatever it was. Um, by Tuesday, he decided he'd show back up, and then he had
Love
to
it.
rub it in my face, so twice I got his pictures within 4 hours, and it's just crazy. And then, of course, Mother Nature's been pretty brutal. I don't know about you, but it's been
Right.
pretty darn cold. So
Right.
just hoping, with these couple deer that I've gotten on camera in the last week or so that they can survive. So
Yeah. So, two things there. One, he's alive and he's in the area. Two,
right.
hopefully he sheds on your property. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like,
Yep.
do you think you have enough food to keep him till he sheds?
I think I have enough food, but I think I also am in the spot where he winters. Last year I did find a shed, so I think the one drawback maybe with this season versus last year is the extreme cold that we have. He may
Hmm.
look for better cover. So
Yeah.
that's the only thing that I've kind of been I'm not going to push that property for sure just to find his
Right.
sheds. I'd love to find them, but I think there's going to be better cover for bedding in this extreme stuff, so
Right. Well, if anything, I think these cold temps are just going to make these deer shed earlier. Um, I
yeah,
feel like,
same.
when there's a lot of expanding and contracting, I'm guessing for the next handful, like I looked at the weather this morning and I believe the next 5 to 7 days are going to be colder than average. And then we're going to go through a warming period and then cool back down again. And I think temperature actually plays a role in the expansion and contraction of the antler itself will help with it falling off earlier. So colder temps
Yeah,
mean
I
early
agree.
shedding. That's what
I think
tend to
so.
find.
I've always well, I've always thought that same, especially when you have the extreme temperatures.
Yeah.
It was just a week and a half or so ago that we had temperatures where the ground was pretty much thawed and we were able to
Yep.
be outside in sweatshirts. So
Yep.
that extreme change, and then now we're going to be in that period of probably 3 weeks where we're well below freezing. So
Right.
we'll see.
Right. Yeah, I'm hoping to get the boys, well, my boy, my oldest boy and the neighbor boy out ice fishing. Finally, I feel like it's been cold enough for long enough now to where, because it was cold and then it thawed and then the water thawed and then now it's been cold now for, we're just going on 2 weeks. So I'm going to go test. I'm going to take a drill out there and I'm going to go test the pond, get them out ice fishing a little bit, have some fun there. Maybe not this weekend, but next weekend. And other than that, man, um, it's just wrestling back. It's wrestling season. We're going to the state capitol in Des Moines this weekend for one of the biggest all girls tournaments in the state, where my daughter will probably run into some girls that she's going to wrestle at state. So
Okay.
um, so I'm hoping it's a tough tournament where she gets an idea of the pressure that is required to be, to win state or to place top three. And so she's placed eighth, fifth. And this year, I honestly don't, unless all of a sudden her bracket becomes just stacked, I see placing third or higher a real possibility for her this year. So hopefully all the hammers decide to go to different weight classes, or
Yeah.
we pick the right weight class to go to, and because you're gonna have to wrestle somebody really tough at some point.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping it's someone she's already wrestled this year or beat. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's funny because we talk about our kids in sports a lot,
Yeah.
and one of the things that like I've had to juggle, and I don't know about you so much, is my son loves sports and he loves to play them and
Yeah.
everything, but putting in that extra work is sometimes that's where dad has to kick him in the butt a little bit,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
I don't know how to. I've been trying to toss that around, like, how much do you push? How far do you push it? And then how much do you back off?
Yeah.
Do you make it a, well, hey, this is your decision. This is what we're sticking with. Do because like right now he's in the middle of winter workouts for football.
Right.
Nothing mandatory at all, but they have a thing where they're gonna allow these kids, if they make, I think, 12 of these workouts, and then they get signed up for league by the end of March or something, that they can go to Chicago Bears training camp. And I
Oh,
thought it'd be kind of
awesome.
cool. Like, hey, dude, let's aim for that this year. And
Yeah.
right away, that first camp or first day of practice, he's like, I don't want to play this year. And then, then there was then there was the mindset change by, so I was on a Friday, and then by Monday, we're all gung ho and ready to play. And then it changes again, where I don't
Yeah.
know if he made the decision or he was with his mom and she made the decision, but he didn't go to the last one, So we've already
Yeah.
missed 2 out of 3. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, my wife, her 2 of her cousins are from out in your dad's area, and they made the NFL. And so
Oh yeah.
I met one of them yesterday for the first time, and I literally just want to have him sit down with my son and be like, dude, if you want to play anywhere in life outside of this, outside of like, your little summer rec programs and stuff, do you know what the work is what
Yeah.
entails with all of it? So it's because we go back and forth with, especially like the tumbling thing with the girls, is like, is tumbling is that it? After you
Yeah.
hit like the teenage era, is that it? Or are you going to be an Olympian, or, you're going to go to
Right.
college, or I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough, especially when the kids they bounce back and forth between how interested they are in something. Like, I think right now my son, my oldest son, he doesn't know really what he wants other than I don't want to go to school ever again. Like, he hates school and he
Right.
just wants to go outside fishing and hunting. And
Yeah.
I'm okay with that, obviously,
Yeah.
but you got to get an education and you can't just be a hunter all your life, right? So
Right.
you got to do something else with it. So yeah, it's being a sporting parent or an activities parent in this day and age is a lot different than it was. I have a different approach, and then we'll get into today's topic. But my approach is, you're either in or you're out. If you're in,
Okay.
then you're in. If you're out, then you're out. And
Right.
so because I like schedules are very important. And
Sure.
so I will take you to your practices no matter how many times a week it is. I'm down to
Mhm.
do it, but
Right.
I'm not going to do this back and forth thing. So if you're in, you're in. If you're out, you're out, and we'll do something different. So
Yeah.
um, there's that. All right. Why don't you, before we get into this idea I have for a topic today, I why don't you go ahead and tell us about our partner?
Yeah, so Code Blue Scents, they have real and synthetic, and they have everything from detergents to your sprays and spray your equipment down. They have the rope a dope system, which we talk about that every week, and
Every week.
how
Yep.
every single week we talk about it, and making the mock scrapes, and it is still something that I'm getting inventory of deer, because of using mock scrapes still right now. And
Yep.
I will periodically through until hunting season starts, and then it'll just ramp right back up. So it's not like they don't use the scrapes,
Yep.
during the off season, because so it's definitely worth something or worth checking into. So I'd go
Yep.
to codebluesense.com, and we do have a discount code of 20%, and it's HTH20. Go check them out, guys, because the whole line is amazing, and they've come out
Yeah.
some bundle packages and stuff for this year too. So
Yep. Absolutely. Real and synthetic deer urine, scent elimination products, the rope dope mock scrape kit, and like you said, those combo packages are all out now. Visit codebluesense.com. All right. So my buddy sends me a text message late last night, and it's this. Sometimes what happens, especially when you're talking about budgets for like the state of Iowa or Illinois or really anything, everybody's trying to figure out what's the most efficient way to run a government or run where they can save money, where they can spend more, or where they need to spend more or less of it. And there was recently an investigative group of people that had been put together to investigate whether or not the Department of Agriculture should absorb the Department of Natural Resources, and to see if there's anything overlapping there, and to merge those into one uh, one organization or one part of the government. And I look at that, and I don't know I know I'm springing this on you. There was no research done, but I look at something like that and I go, that's kind of scary. Putting someone who is used to treating animals like a commodity and all of a sudden absorbing a natural resource, being responsible for a natural resource. Um, I look at that and I go, that's probably not that new organization or that new department would not have the best interest for the natural resources, right? I don't know. Like, I just don't think that's a good idea. I feel like the Department of Natural Resources does some amazing things and is heavily focused on the benefit and the future of all natural resources in whatever state it is, especially deer, right?
yeah,
So when I think Department of Natural Resources, I think, allocating tag allocations. I think I think tag allocations. I think trying to secure and maintain wetlands for wildlife, public lands, making sure that there's a lot of effort that's put into driving around the state, taking deer numbers, pheasant numbers, like doing water control, like making sure the water is clean, a whole bunch of like, just a whole bunch of different things. And then I look at and I'm talking about deer specifically now. I look at the Department of Natural or Agriculture and their connection with the Farm Bureau. The Farm Bureau doesn't like deer. They want deer to be dead because they don't want to, like, insurance companies don't want to have to pay any money to collisions, like deer collisions. They don't want to have to pay out any money for crop damage. They don't want to have to pay out whether that's deer. And to be honest with you, my gut tells me that yes, deer do participate in crop damage, but raccoons almost play a bigger role
Oh,
in crop damage. I bet you if you sat in your blind every day for an entire year, there would be more raccoons damaging your food plots than deer. Honestly, like especially knocking down stalks of corn and things like that. I've seen raccoons destroy acres
right.
of ground. And so when you have somebody who's solely focused on agriculture absorb someone who is solely focused on natural resource, I feel like somebody's not going to be getting a fair shake, and it's probably going to be the natural resource.
Man, you are talking about a topic that my wife and I actually talked about when we were heading to Iowa. Um, And it actually stemmed from more of the CWD talk than anything.
Yeah.
We saw a few dead deer alongside the road, and then we started talking about CWD, which you and I talked about last week a little bit
Hmm.
in regards to like knowing whether I've seen one or not, and I
Yeah.
could identify one. So my wife asked the same question, and then we started talking about the Farm Bureau and everything, and I find it funny. I mean, I live in the country. I grew up in the country. That's how I am, so I've always been in support of farmers and everything. My insurance company requires me to be a member of the Farm Bureau. And it's a kind of a double-edged sword because, as much as I want to support the farmers and we need farmers and all of that, the one of the first things like explained to my wife was like with CWD, it was, "Let's go in and let's wipe deer out," right? Uh, so a lot of farmers were just allowing the DNR in, and here in Illinois, they would just hire sharpshooters, they would set up a ground blind and put up a corn pile and just wipe them out. Well, of course, the Farm Bureau loved that, because the less deer there are, the less car collisions there are, the less crop damage there is. And in hindsight, it really just, like, becomes a me versus you type battle because not
Hmm.
only are farmers on board with this because they're convinced that, deer are causing all this damage, right? And then you have, I don't wanna say city people claiming that all these car collisions are happening because of deer, but then you have farmers who are wiping out fence lines to get rid of deer in places that they bed and places that they, habitat in. So it really just becomes a me versus you thing, and
Hmm.
it's more opinion based than it is science based, I think. And I
Yeah.
say that because like a lot of the lobbyists, like doing all this research on these individual states that I've been working on, doing all the research is it's lobbyists that are really just my voice versus your voice. And then if
Hmm.
you look at where these voices are coming from and what organizations they're tied to and who is tied in with this one and that one and who's friends with this one, it really becomes a demise of like what our purpose is in that conservation. So when you do take those two organizations, then I'm just going to say, because I don't know how long, and I'd have to look, but how long the Farm Bureau has had ties with like, so my insurance company, how long have they had ties together? And is that strictly based on like we have this tie because of car collisions
Hmm.
with deer, or is this a tie because of real estate? And
Yeah.
where are we hiring or where we want these lobbyists to put their efforts?
Right. Yeah, it's man, it's crazy. The more you think, the more you learn about how the government actually works and how lobbyists actually work and who is hiring the lobbyists, whether it is on the natural resource side, because natural resource organizations have definitely have lobbyists, the Farm Bureau and the I don't want to say anti hunting, but like the anti deer, right? Community, like the Farm Bureau, they definitely have lobbyists and things like that. So you learn about things like that, and when you're making decisions for wildlife based off of money and not science and data, it just becomes real muddy and gross
Mhm.
because Dude, I don't want to go. I don't want to get into politics. I honestly don't want to.
Well, yeah, I was actually going to say mention something about that, about the amount of protesters that I saw just on my way to through Iowa,
Yeah.
hanging off of bridges and stuff. And I know we don't want to go down the political road of things, but a lot of times when you see that stuff, it's not a positive. It's not because they have the knowledge. It's not
Hmm.
because they're actually for their party. A lot of times it's just because they're against that party,
Yes.
and it's and that's the worst part of it. It's like, if the insurance companies or Farm Bureau don't like deer because they don't like to pay out for the collisions, so automatically they don't like hunters, right? Hunters aren't doing enough. So then we have to hire somebody outside of that and spend money, which
Hmm.
makes a whole nother organization to eliminate deer so they don't have to pay out money. And in the big scheme of things, I mean, if you look at the Illinois or Wisconsin or Texas or any of these places that have had CWD, can anybody step forward and say that they have a clear-cut answer on how to get rid of CWD and what the
Yeah.
best solution to it was?
No.
I mean, it just, to me, I don't want to say it's just wasted dollars, but where are we with it?
Yeah. No, dude, I agree. I agree. And I think this is the crazy part. I think that it's just as on, let's say for CWD, for example, there's been millions and millions and millions of dollars generated for CWD research over 10, 15 years now. And there has not been an answer for what makes CWD. I mean, they kind of get CWD, but nothing has really changed
Mhm.
about it. And so then all of a sudden people will forget about CWD, just like people will forget about whatever hot topic, buzzword, political, natural resource, whatever, conservation. Do you remember back in the day when there was the big hashtag hunting is conservation movement? And
Yes.
everybody was like, dude, I'm a conservationist. I hunt, blah, 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 but they don't do shit, right? They just
Right.
say I'm a hunter, right?
Right.
That's not true. Like hunters are
Uh,
not conservationists. Like what other than killing a deer, what do you do? Nothing, right? So you're not a conservationist. So, and then that's my opinion anyway. But when it comes to like spending money, and we talked a little bit about this last week, I don't know if it was last week or a couple weeks ago. Dude, I don't know. There's not enough information out there for anybody to make a educated decision. On top of that, nobody's working together in
uh,
any aspect of wildlife. The insurance companies are not working with the Department of Natural Resources saying, hey, what do you think we can do together to do that? And if they are working together, it's in the benefit of the insurance companies, the Farm Bureau, because it's just like, hey, how about we introduce crossbows? How about we introduce a rifle season? How about we introduce an extended antlerless season? And about it's only about like killing more deer, killing
yeah.
more animals, right?
Well,
And so then how do you do that? How does Jason go if you were in charge? If I said, "Hey Jason, everybody wants bigger antlered deer, right? So we got to stop everybody. We got to stop killing 2 and 3 year olds. We got to stop doing it. We got to get we got to have this. So we need to change the rules and regulations. And then you're fighting the insurance companies and the farm bureaus of the world saying, I don't care. They don't care about age structure or antler size or anything like that. All they want to do is make the population smaller. But nobody's
right.
talking about, hey, let's look about where these collisions are happening, and then let's maybe do improvement programs further away from major roads so that deer stay away from roads instead of having to cross. And then
Right.
you also have to just realize, listen, they were here before us.
Right.
Animals were here before us. We are the ones who put the roads across bridges and their travel corridors through water and egg country, and we're responsible for that. So it's kind of just like man, I've hit deer before.
Hmm.
What are you going to do? Right. And
I
I wish more people would talk to each other.
Yeah, this kind of all ties back to the conversation my wife and I had yesterday. And so she didn't realize that there were outfitters in
Mhm.
Illinois. And I
Yep.
said, oh my gosh, at one point, Illinois was like, with the Golden Triangle and all that, it was a thriving state as far as big bucks and stuff. And as soon as you get a politician involved and a dollar sign behind it, you can lose a lot of that real quick
Mhm.
because Illinois is still over the counter for non-residents. There are no antler point restrictions. There are so many things that have just taken the herd, and
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what size that deer is. And then think about a bobcat tag here. I see more bobcats on trail camera or in person than probably any other state that I visit, and it is not talked about, I think, enough, and they allocate for 2,000 bobcats in a year. 2,000 in the entire state of Illinois. And I'm just sitting there like, yeah, but you still take my money each time, right?
Mhm.
It's not like I get a refund on it each year. For 10, 12 years now, I've applied for this tag and I've gotten 2 of them, but they still take my money. Same with every time you apply for a turkey tag. So like right now, third lottery is open for Illinois. Well, each time you get, you know, rejected on it, they got to get their finder's fee, they got to get their transaction fee and all that stuff. So how many times is it just about that dollar? And I really
Yeah.
think there's no science-based evidence with it. My
Yeah.
wife asked me, going back to the CWD thing, she's like, "So how do you know if one has it?" I mean, you can see signs of a deer having CWD, but if it's early stages and you shoot a deer that's got CWD, there's nothing saying that you can't eat that meat, right?
Mhm.
So where are they benefiting by having sharpshooters come out and take these deer out of the herd? Just
Yeah.
so it doesn't spread from there?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Mismanagement.
Yeah. Here's another one in the city or in the urban areas of a neighboring city next to where I live. They have started investigating sharpshooters. Well, they already have an urban deer hunting program. So here's the thing. You have a urban deer hunting program where there are areas that people can bow hunt. It's a bow hunt only, urban deer areas. But then nobody wants to allow hunters on the property. So instead, the government's gonna force their way in and start popping deer, whether the landowner wants it or not, done
Mhm.
or not. And so
Yep.
now you're not only pissing off hunters because hunters want to hunt
Right.
and like if you're a landowner, you might as well let a hunter hunt because if you don't let a hunter hunt on your property in this urban environment and really what it is, it's like the way there's like a river that runs through this city and on each side of it there's a whole bunch of homes and like wooded areas and pockets of deer movement. Well, it's a very liberal city, and usually when you say the word liberal in hunting they don't mesh that well, and so
Right.
there's a lot of people that are like, no, absolutely not, I like looking at the deer, I want deer on my property. But guess what the government's going to do? They're going to do whatever they want to do, and they're going to
Right.
shoot deer on your property and then drag it off or things like that. And so um and so it's like, why not let people hunt on your property? Because they're going to do you know back in the day when they had this program, like a hunter would go in and hunt, they would kill the deer, they couldn't gut it in someone's yard, they have to take it
Sure.
whole out and then go find a different place to gut it, and usually they just drive into the country, drop it in a ditch, and then you know gut it there.
Yeah.
um but that wasn't working for people, and people were having a problem with hunters. So the sharpshooters come in. The sharpshooters were spotlighting deer at night, shooting them because there was a big complaint about people not wanting these deer to, like, I don't want to see a deer get shot. I don't want to see a dead deer. And then
Right.
when they shot the deer, they would take a plastic bag and they would put it over top of the head of the deer so that if for some reason someone drove by, they would not see the eyes of the dead animal and feel sorry for it.
Mhm.
Crazy. To
Yeah.
me, I look at that and I go, like a bag over a deer's head almost seems like it had been tortured to death rather than shot and killed. You know what I mean? It's like, it
To
just
me, it's
blows my,
just, yeah, it's
yeah,
just more disturbing. I mean,
Yeah,
you're just
exactly.
adding to it, like I did
Yes.
something wrong. Look at here.
Yeah. Now I'm
I
trying to cover my tracks.
Right. To me, it's just going back to the conservation part of things. Okay. So being a conservationist, I mean, really, it stems further than just managing deer and
Right.
managing other wildlife, because we're actually managing the natural resources that are, the ground that's there, whether it's putting in food plots, whether it's managing the trees and invasive species, or whether it's the animals that are on that landscape. That's conservation. But now when you
Right.
start to take conservation and different organizations,
Yeah.
whether just say it's hunting, okay? If you take conservation and you put hunting into that scheme of things, conservation is going to look differently to somebody that hunts versus not hunts,
Hmm.
or doesn't hunt. And
Right.
when I say that, it's like you just said, people love to see deer in their backyard. So do I, but I also love to hunt them, you know,
Hmm.
and me managing deer is different than managing the natural resource. I'm going to go in and I'm going to plant stuff that looks good. I'm gonna plant stuff that's non-invasive, and I'm gonna plant stuff that's gets fall color or maybe produces some fruits. And it's not all about planting it to the deer. That's a conservationist. When you look at, okay, hey Dan, you can make $5 every time you click on this and you submit your survey or whatever it is. You're going to go to click on $5 every single time. And then that's the same thing as if, hey Jason, when you need this insurance, you have to add this farm bureau membership or you have to do
Hmm.
this. I mean, there's so many ways that they just grab your money, but what is your money going to? So this goes back to a couple weeks ago when you were talking about what organizations do you support? Well, I think first and foremost, we need to become educated within our governments, within our states, and know where our tax dollars are going, know where our
Right.
hunting fees are going, and start there first. And if you don't like
Yeah.
where that money's going, then I got the news for you. The other organizations aren't necessarily going to good things either.
Yeah. That's a fact, dude. That's a fact. Again, I like how we've ended the season with these types of conversations because it is important. If you
Right.
want your kid, like if you want to be able to hunt next year, the year after that, 5 years, 10 years, or you want your child to hunt or grandchildren to hunt, these are all things that are extremely important. And I look at I look at this and the Farm Bureau or these insurance companies, they're not, or whoever is trying to increase tag allocations in like, or shoot as many deer as humanly possible type of organizations or companies or businesses or whatever, they're not ever asking, hey, I wonder what the hunters think. Let's work closely with the hunters
Right.
and try to do this. They're not doing that. And so when my buddy sends me that text last night, I look at this and I go, they're trying to sneak this shit through again.
Hmm.
They're trying to sneak stuff through. And so that's why it's very important in your state to be somewhat connected. The one thing that I really am that I have friends who are on top of it, right? And so I'm not necessarily on top of it, but I have friends that are on top of it. And there's organizations like Iowa, for example, has the Iowa Bow Hunters Association, and they're really good about keeping up to date on a whole bunch of different um, like rules and regulations that are trying to get passed. And then they're like, hey, listen, just to let everybody know, we got this going on. And then that is, and then there's action items that are involved. And then you
Right.
can email a state representative or a senator or something like that and just be like, hey, this is BS. I do not like it. And I don't want you to vote. Like this is how I would like you to vote on it. And so,
Yeah.
a lot of that gets snuck through. And in the busy world that we all live in, it's sometimes hard to keep up to date with all of these things, right? Especially like what we said. How am I supposed to just sit down and dedicate a day to research when I got 3 kids, I got a
Right.
job, I have all of these things and activities that I live through in a day? If you really care, you'll do that.
Well, and not only that, but I mean, even just in your home state, how many times
Right.
year in and year out, your rules and regulations just for hunting itself have changed.
Mhm.
Here in
Mhm.
Illinois, we've introduced, crossbows, we've introduced, rifles now. We used to have handgun and muzzleloader and shotgun and then youth shotgun and then archery and then, so looking at just all that stuff in a nutshell, that's a lot in itself. I mean,
Mhm.
to know what days you can go out. I mean, it's crazy. To me, it's
Yep.
just crazy the amount that we have to introduce to cater to everyone.
Yep.
This crowd likes this crowd likes that. And to me, the sickest part of it is it's just a money grab. That's all it
Yeah.
is.
Yep.
Because there's no reason that you can't still have the natural resources, still be a conservationist, and enjoy the sport of hunting. There's no reason
Yeah.
you can't. But there's no
Yep.
reason that you can't be supportive of your farmers either
Mhm.
and be a hunter. The
Yeah.
I laugh because I have some really good friends that farm several thousands of acres, and they are very gracious to me on letting me hunt some property, but they are very, um, oh, what's the word? For the management of CWD. And I say that lightly just heavy, I guess. So either way, let's look at it this way. They allow 10 deer taken on one of their farms by a sharpshooter every year. And, to me, 10 deer is a lot, because how many deer are in a square mile? Just say if it was 5, 6 deer on average in those counties or whatever, you just wiped out a square mile of deer plus some, right? Almost
Mhm.
2 square miles of deer. But they also love the hunters. They love eating the meat. And it kind of is like a double-edged sword of like, do you let the DNR on there to sharpshoot because you want that in your back pocket or because you really feel that deer are destroying your crops? And I
Yeah.
have a hard time with that.
Yeah. It is. It is. It's something that needs to be thought about. And this is just an extension of last week's where we're talking about getting involved,
Right.
right? And getting involved doesn't mean you like pick a conservation effort and roll with it. It also means getting involved where you should probably start looking at the rules and regulations of your state, start getting involved, especially during the off season, right? Like
Yeah.
football's over, dude. Like I don't, maybe you watch basketball, baseball hasn't started yet, things like that. And we're in a period of time where the season's over. Nobody really wants to think about deer hunting. Everybody's starting to get ramped up for turkey and things like that. But we do have to start talking a little bit more about the rules and regulations, or what's going to happen is they're just going to continue to sneak shit in to this to the point where there's going to be so many tags allocated and then we're going to be like, oh, this is actually really upsetting. But it's because, and this is the government in a nutshell, sneak it in, sneak it in, sneak it in. Now, all of a sudden, people are so angry that they weren't paying attention in the first place because their lives are
Right.
so busy. Now they want to try to undo all of this stuff. And undoing it is harder than paying attention. You know what I
Well,
mean? So,
yeah. I mean, well,
yeah,
look at Nebraska. I mean, we hunted Nebraska and we hunted it because it was a very affordable state. We could go
yep,
in and shoot $2. It was a great thing, great experience, all that stuff. And then all of a sudden there's not the deer there for you to shoot. And
yeah,
then they go backpedaling and then they have to make, oh, the mule deer are disappearing. There's not very many to hunt. And it's
yep,
it's becoming like a 1 and 2 year process in Nebraska as a non-resident to get a tag in certain regions.
yeah,
It's the same with Colorado. You start to
yep,
see the mismanagement of the natural resource. It,
yeah.
it's all it,
Uh, uh,
it was all about
yeah,
greed and money.
yeah. Yep. And that's why we need, in my opinion, the Department of Natural Resources and proper funding for that to maintain wildlife and things like that. So I on the Nine Finger Chronicles recently, man, I'm trying to I did a podcast about how the state of Iowa, for example, 64% of Iowa residents in 2010 voted for an amendment to the Iowa Constitution to permanently fund wildlife and state parks and access to hunting grounds and public grounds. And our politicians haven't turned that on yet. And it's been 16 years. So
Oh wow.
yeah, so I'm really frustrated about I just found this out through some
Yeah.
research.
Yeah.
And so that was in 2010, 16 years. It would have it would have generated $3 billion for the state of Iowa, but the politicians can't agree on how to turn it on. Well, it's easy, just turn it on. It's
Yeah.
everything's already laid out. You don't need to add or take away things from it. Just turn it on. So, um, yes,
It's just sad. Anytime that there's a dollar amount or somebody thinks they can put a dollar on it, the eyeballs roll and everything, and then the wheels start spinning. And what can I do with this money? And where can I put it? And
yeah.
uh, it's too bad.
I'll end with this though, because budgets are important, right?
Right.
Tax dollars, your tax dollars, my tax dollars, go to funding the Department of Natural Resource, funding the Department of Agriculture,
Right.
and where science and data and all of that stuff is important, and it does lead to decision, and we just need to follow through with that and not be influenced by the outside dollars that are coming
Right.
in to this as well. So, you got to go here, but I just want to say, I promise next week we're going to start getting into more of how to do deer hunting stuff, right? And I feel like I want to talk about shed hunting. I want to talk about things that we've seen in these winter months, as far as deer behavior, as far as habitat. I want to talk a little bit more about habitat improvement this time of year, how to specifically. I know you do more than I do of habitat improvement. So I want to start picking your brain about how to specifically create a bedding area or prepare ground for a food plot, and all these upcoming things that are going to be so important to, to this. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think that if you do still have trail cameras out there, there's definitely a lot you can be watching with your deer herd injuries and
Yes.
stuff like that. And I will say, there's obviously still states that are open to hunting, and we do
Yep.
we talk about the Midwest a lot, So for those that are still open, go out and fill those tags and hit Dan up with some questions or anything, especially if you're in a southern state or another state that is open. It'd be nice to hear from you and know what it is like to hunt in February, March timeframe, whatever it may be.
Yep.
So kind of
Yep.
curious on I don't know much about it. So
Yeah. And that's crazy because the South, there's parts of the South right now that are either in their rut or just getting ready for the rut. So it's crazy how, from places like Florida where they have a July rut to, October ruts, or like
right,
mid to early October ruts, to all the way down into January, February. Even I think there's this is what blows my mind. While I'm shed hunting and our season has been done for 2 months, there's other states in the U.S. that are just wrapping up in March, even. So
yeah,
it's crazy,
yeah.
the spread of that. I think what we got to do is we got to try to get somebody on from the South here in the next couple weeks, and knock out an interview with them. But do us a huge favor. Go to Apple Podcast or iTunes, Spotify, wherever you download and listen to the How to Hunt Deer podcast. Just a comment, even if it's as simple as "I like this podcast," that would be awesome. Give us a 5-star review. That lets everybody know that this is in fact educational and entertaining, and things like that. Also, we do have a YouTube channel now. So go to YouTube, search How to Hunt Deer, and you're going to find our podcast, and subscribe to the podcast as well, because here in a couple months, we're going to start getting outside. Even though I don't think I told you this, March 25th, I got my knee replacement surgery.
I was gonna
So,
ask you that.
yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So
Okay.
I finally got it scheduled. So I'll be incapacitated for, I don't know how long. Hopefully not too terribly long. Hope,
Yeah.
like they told me it's an in and out procedure.
Yep.
I'm gonna get it done, and they're gonna have me up and walking either on a walker or crutches that same day,
That day. Yeah.
and
Yep.
then it's rehab from there, right? So I'm hoping that I'm not going on a Western hunt this year. However, I am going to be planning on working hard, rehabbing my body to the point where I can climb a tree stand in the fall. So
Yeah.
Wish me luck.
What's t-
Fingers
what's
crossed.
what's turkey season look like? Are you going to attempt it, taking
Uh,
the kids, or
if
okay?
I attempt it, I'm going to be 1 month. It's actually going to be like 2 weeks, 3 weeks post-op.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'll probably wrap up real hard and then crutch my way into an area, sit on a chair, and maybe
Yeah.
have somebody. I'll call and have somebody basically sit with my kids,
Yeah.
like one of my buddies or something. And
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. Like, I got to figure that out because my boy, he really wants to go turkey hunting, and so maybe I'll have him go sit with my stepdad, and I'll just call or find something to do. I don't think I'm going to be so incapacitated that I'm not going to be able to like sit down. I have some knee braces left over from when
Yeah.
I've had like the isolation ones when I had my ACL replacements.
Yeah.
So I got to figure it out. Is what I'm getting at. So I don't know. I don't know. I got to
Yeah.
figure it out. So
All right.
other than that, go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Good vibes, Jason. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of this week and stay warm out there. Thank you for listening to the How to Hunt Deer podcast, and we'll talk to you next week.